She cut the lock on my private pool with a pair of bolt cutters strutted inside like she owned the place, and announced that the HOA had the right to seize my backyard for community use. And the craziest part, she had no idea that the man sitting quietly at my patio table, notebook in hand, was the governor of our state. In that moment I realized this wasn't just some nosy neighbor overstepping, it was about to turn into something much bigger and much uglier than anyone expected. For 15 years I hunted financial criminals for the FBI. My life was endless flights, wiretaps, and courtrooms chasing people who thought they could outsmart the system. When I retired, I thought I'd finally found peace in Meadowbrook Heights, a gated neighborhood where the loudest thing at night was crickets by the pool. That pool wasn't just water in the ground. It was my sanctuary, the one place where I could breathe without scanning for threats. So hosting a small gathering that afternoon felt like a big step forward. 8 carefully chosen guests, including one man who'd quietly asked me not to mention his title. Langston Hale, governor of the state, had come incognito to hear how HOAs actually behave. If only he knew how fast he was about to get his answer. The metallic snap of bolt cutters on steel shattered that calm. Cheryl Voss, president of our HOA, stormed in like a neon-colored hurricane, literally wearing a blinding bikini that looked like it was designed to cause eye damage. She was flanked by 4 women dragging speakers, folding tables, and even a cash box. They cannonballed into my pool like kids on summer break, shrieking with laughter while my guests sat stunned. One woman fired up a grill near my outdoor kitchen, another started inflating pool floats, and the third set up laminated schedules and membership sign-up forms. I'd seen raids overseas with less organization. I stepped forward, my voice tight but steady, and asked what the hell they thought they were doing. Cheryl smirked, raised her chin, and said, "This pool belongs to the community." Section 12A of the HOA Covenant forbids hoarding recreational facilities when wellness is at stake. Then, with theatrical flair, she whipped out a waterproof folder, pulling documents stamped with city seals and signatures. They looked official, intimidating even, but my gut screamed fraud. Danny Reeves, my 30-year-old neighbor, had his phone out streaming the whole fiasco live. Within minutes, thousands were watching. Beside me, old Mr. Abernathy, the retired property lawyer, leaned in and whispered, "Section 12A doesn't exist. She's bluffing." Across the table, the governor's pen scratched faster, his calm face betraying only the slightest flicker of interest. Cheryl had no clue who she was performing for, and that ignorance would cost her everything. Still, in that moment, I felt powerless. Watching strangers lounge on my deck, hearing Cheryl bark orders like a drill sergeant, I actually wondered if maybe I was the unreasonable one. Was I too private, too protective of my space? For a second I thought about just walking away. Let her win, keep my head down, avoid a fight. I'd spent years trying to escape conflict, why invite it back into my life? But then Maria Santos, another HOA board member, slipped to my side. Her voice trembled. "She made us falsify financial reports. The money's going to some developer, not community improvements." My hesitation evaporated. This wasn't about being neighborly. This was organized theft. And then Cheryl made her biggest mistake. Standing waist-deep in my pool, she dialed a number on her waterproof phone and said loud enough for us all to hear, "Jerry, it's showtime. Use the usual tactics: violations, inspections, whatever it takes to bring him into compliance. Payments already gone through." My surveillance system, far from ordinary, recorded every word. The AI flagged the name instantly. Jerome Walsh, former city clerk, fired and indicted for corruption 6 months earlier. Cheryl wasn't just trespassing. She was coordinating with a criminal under federal investigation. Governor Hale leaned toward me and murmured, "That permit she's waiving has Walsh's signature. He's awaiting trial. If she's working with him, this isn't HOA business, it's obstruction of justice." That was the turning point. The hunter in me, the man who'd dismantled money laundering schemes and Ponzi operations, woke back up. I wasn't just Eli, the quiet retiree, anymore. I was the guy who built cases brick by brick until criminals begged for plea deals. Cheryl had just handed me everything I needed. The next day, Cheryl doubled down. She announced an emergency HOA meeting at my pool to formalize her takeover. By the time the sun set, she'd transformed my backyard into a stage podium, microphone display boards plastered with fraudulent documents, rows of folding chairs. 60 neighbors showed up curious after seeing Danny's viral stream. News outlets had picked up the story. Online, over 200,000 people were watching live. What Cheryl thought was her moment of glory was in reality a noose tightening around her neck. She strutted to the podium now in a stiff business suit and launched into a speech about democratizing resources. She pointed at my pool like it was a monument to greed-waving papers that claimed city authorization, inspection reports, even neighbor petitions. Her voice dripped with conviction, so much confidence that some residents actually nodded along. I clenched my fists. I knew every word was fraud, every document a lie. But I stayed silent because I knew what was coming. When Cheryl finished and smugly announced, "Effective today, this facility will operate under HOA management," Governor Hale stood. He slid off his sunglasses and a ripple of recognition spread through the crowd. Gasps, whispers, phones raised. Cheryl froze at the podium, her face draining of color as she realized who had been watching her every move. Before any resolutions are passed, the governor said, his voice calm, but carrying the weight of authority. "Introductions are in order. I am Langston Hale, governor of this state, and I have been documenting your actions for my housing reform legislation." He paused, letting the silence press in. "Ms. Voss, your demonstration has provided exceptionally clear evidence of systematic abuse, fraudulent documents, coordination with indicted officials, intimidation of homeowners. What you've done here today is not community leadership. It is criminal." The crowd was dead silent. Danny's live stream exploded, online comments flying faster than the screen could scroll. Cheryl stammered, searching for words, her eyes darting toward her board members. But there was no rescue coming. Federal agents had already been briefed. Within hours, warrants were issued. Cheryl's fraudulent empire collapsed. Overnight searches of city offices, bank accounts frozen, 31 federal charges filed. Wire fraud, extortion, conspiracy, racketeering. Her name went from HOA president to defendant in less than a week. As I watched her dragged from my poolside podium, I felt no triumph, no celebration, just the cold satisfaction of justice finally catching up. For a moment I thought about how close I'd come to giving up, to letting her bully me into silence. And I realized the only reason she'd ever gotten this far was because too many people had done exactly that, backed down. The truth is, simple bullies in positions of fake power only win when good people stop fighting.